Okay, hi everyone. So I want to go through some more information about the anthology. I'm going to direct you here. I did extend the due date, so you have until Wednesday at 10 p.m. this week. But I want to go over of what a little bit more your anthology should have inside of it. Um, the more you think about an anthology, it's a published collection of writing or of other pieces of writing, of stories, poetry, parts of books. The way I said to think about it in class is to think about it as a collection of pieces that are put together to form a book, and it can have a lot of different readings on a common subject or theme. I think there's also some other good ways of talking about a definition of an anthology. Literally, there's so many different categories of anthologies that you can come across: anthologies of film, fiction, poetry, TV, essay collections, and so forth. Obviously, literature, writing are ones that you're going to find most prominent too. These are some different examples of ones that have been created in poetry as well. But I think this is a good idea to think about the function of the anthology is that it gives readers a look into places, experiences, and people that they otherwise don't get to experience. And this is done by linking together stories, poems, plays, essays, book chapters, whatever it might be. And you put these pieces together, you can think of yourself as the editor, not because you want them to only read an individual work, but you want them to look at all of these works all together. Otherwise, people might not get to read them or understand. And I think I love the function of the anthology because I think this part is really important. It keeps readers from getting bored. You're constantly reading different essays, which is really nice. That's one thing we've done all this semester. And you explore a lot of different types of worlds and feelings in stories and essays, poetry, whatever it is that you're reading. And it helps you find the best pieces put together that type of way. So I love the idea of using an anthology and for you to create your own anthology of readings related to pop culture, because I think it's really important to see what themes you tie all of these readings together with. So what you're doing here is that you're finding about 4 to 6 different articles. And I've said these are ones that you want to be scholarly, well-researched, published materials, whatever you pick relating to your theme of pop culture. Because you're submitting these electronically, obviously these are scholarly pieces, but the nice thing about doing these electronically is that you can also include links in them. You can include links when you're explaining your article. You can include links before your article in your table of contents so that when we pass along and we post these anthologies, other people can then click on some of these links in addition to the analysis that you give. So that's also really, really important. Not only have to be links, you can link to Twitter, you can even link to other stories, you can use Tumblr if you see something representative of there too. So how to set this up, I will show you some examples in a second of what some of my literature classes have done. But of course, your anthology needs an introduction. It needs 1 to 2 pages of what your anthology is about, why you picked a theme, how you came about to pick these certain articles, and how you feel each article contributes to the theme. How does it help you explain that theme a little bit more? So your goal is not only to say, I picked this article because it talks about the threats of social media to teens, but it's to talk about why these are threats on social media in regards to teenagers. And how does that connect then to the next article that you picked and so forth? So the idea is to find really good material because hopefully one day lots of different materials can be combined to provide a book about pop culture readings, okay? And that's really important. So you're finding 4 to 6 scholarly articles to include in your anthology, and you're providing a breakdown and analysis of each one. You're going through each article to say why it's important, what other people have said about it, why you're including it in this anthology, what kind of points does it make. At the end of your whole thing, you should have a works cited page and use any in-text citations in your analysis as you go along. So if you're using any other quotes, if you are quoting from the article from the author, everything still needs to be cited in that way. A good setup, you're going to use at least 6 to 7 minimum outside sources to help you with your analysis here because you're finding all these different articles. Your anthology should have a title. It should have a brief table of contents. So after you've written everything and included everything in your anthology, go back and make a little table of contents where you list the titles of the articles, when they were published, the authors, and so forth. Then your body of your paper is the actual analysis where you have a breakdown of the articles. You have the critique of the articles as well. All of them have been thoroughly explained and cited and broken down. You also can have a 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 sentence text introduction at the beginning of each article, or you can even have it at the end of each article. So if you think of a lot of the examples that I've passed out from our book this semester, a lot of them have little 1 to 2 or little paragraphs about what the author is doing, where they're from, or why this is included. This is a great place, like I was saying, in a little text introduction before you do the analysis and introduce the article, to include digital links, to include information related to either the author or what you're going to be talking about at the end. And then finally, the very last thing that should come is your works cited page. Now, because you're including about, we said here, 4 to 6 different articles, you're probably going to take maybe about a page and a half, 2 pages to really break down and explain these articles. But you can always take a little bit more if you wanted to. That's something that you can obviously go back and that you can add on to that too. But that's really what an anthology is, and it's really exciting because it's a nice way to gather material without feeling like you have to commit to a whole novel on one concept, or if you have to commit to a whole textbook on one concept too. For example here, I've had in my other literature classes students put together anthologies, and I removed everyone's names up here, but you can see the student had a works cited page. They started off with their introduction, a brief introduction to why they picked these themes in the anthology, and then went into each author and described a little bit of what they were talking about in terms of the authors and the stories. And they did this for a couple one that they had here, and finally had their works cited page at the end. Same thing for this student. Again, put together a table of contents page, had an introduction. These were the different articles and stories and authors they were looking at, and then finally put a works cited page at the end here. So again, a brief introduction about the anthology, about the themes in the anthology, and then the student went into each and every one of the authors and the text that they were describing too. And same thing with this author. They did a brief introduction, their author and text introduction and analysis, a little conclusion, and a bibliography put together at the end. So you can see that some parts are a little bit longer, but each person dedicated about a page and a half, 2 pages, to working with each author or each article analysis that they were working on there. And that's exactly what you're going to be doing for yours, except you're looking at pop culture pieces, because that's what the theme was for our class. And that's what we found really, really interesting. So that does not mean yours needs to look exactly like everyone else's, but rather yours should have these combinations of things in there at some point. And I would say always starting off with the title, always having a table of contents. This is more just to help with organization of it. Everybody's found really good articles. We've read a lot of articles this semester, and just like you do when you're in your discussion tabs, your job is to figure out, what the author is saying and why that's important. Why is it important for us to learn, and why is it important for other people to take note of too? So that's what your goal is for this assignment. I will post additional office hours and some chat times that I'll have up here so you can ask more questions, especially when I email you back some comments on your rough draft too.